Hello everybody, I hope you're well wherever you are. This video I'm going to be giving a little bit of a reintroduction because from the last time that I was appearing on my YouTube channel it's been a little bit of a while, and I'm just feeling this great need to share more. I love that there's a beautiful quote by Maya Angelou, and she says that as you get older you discover that you have two hands. Well, we all have two hands, but she says that what it is you have one hand to help yourself and you have another hand to help others. And I think that I'm at that point in life that I'm really ready to share what I've learned over these years. So we're all witnessing what's happening in the world, the amount of horror, the amount of despair, the amount of anxiety, stress, illness, disease, fighting, and just wars that are happening everywhere. And I think we can all agree that this is not the way we want to be. This is not what we want to witness. So the question is, what do we want to witness? And what I'm going to be discussing in this video is how we are actually taught to be disempowered. And once we tap into the fact that we have incredible power as creators in this world, to create a new world, to create new structures, because as we're noticing that the old world that we know it, the familiar world that we know it, is just appears to be disintegrating. It's just falling apart at the edges. And I've always been a person who has been on the edge, in the periphery of society. I've never really fit into the mainstream. And now that this mainstream, now that this main society is crumbling, I think that those of us who are on the outskirts, who have been on the outskirts, are the ones that are going to actually be the ones responsible for building this up. And so what it is that I can share with you is that I have this incredible relationship to water. In fact, we all do, but sometimes we just forget about it, especially in the Western world. In ancient cultures, there's more reverence to water, and there's rituals and rites. And I've been spending many years now dedicated to doing rituals and rites and communicating with water. So one of the things is that if we want to change, and the interesting thing about change is that change is natural, innate. I think change is always going to happen. So it's whether we're holding on to the old ways of doing things, or are we willing to transform? Are we willing to change? Are we willing to see things differently? And one of the things that I'm always going to be turning back to and returning to is water. Why? Because our bodies, by volume, approximately anywhere between 70 and 80%. There's disputes about how much that is. But by molecular count, it's actually 99%. So we are water. We're living on a water planet. And without water, there is no life. And what's interesting is that there's water on planet Earth, on our Earth, and there's also water in the universe. So the Milky Way is actually, there's water, and it's plasma. So I'm going to be talking about water. I'm going to be talking about the different phases of water. I'm going to be talking about how we can start communicating with ourselves in terms of telling your waters what to do. I have an interesting story to tell because last year, at the end of last year, I was on a retreat and I was teaching everybody. I was doing the yin yoga, which is the embodiment of this transformation that happens, and I will be sharing with you different poses and how we can actually release pain, tension, and trauma through that. And so I was talking about the waters, and I was telling them all about, our internal waters, and we went on this beautiful boat trip. It was in the southern part of Portugal, in the Algarve, and we were on, it was quite a windy day, so the boat was quite rocky. And then we stopped to have a picnic. And we were on the boat, but they pulled off this, I don't know if you've ever seen them, they're like these flotation devices, and it almost looked like a bone because there was like two triangles on the edge. One of the ladies tried to get across, but she was just, scooting across. And so I got on, and as I got on to the one point, and I could hardly stand up. That's how rocky it was. That's how, the waters were just very churned up. So I couldn't even find balance standing on that, let alone trying to cross. And I just looked at the girls who were there in the water and I said, I'm probably going to fall in. And then suddenly I took this incredible realization that here I am as their yoga teacher telling them how important it is, how we think, what we think, how we talk to ourselves, and there I am saying I'm not going to make it. So I turned to the guy who was on the boat and I said, this is impossible. And he says, no, just put one foot on the front and then just cross. And so I put every single bit of energy and focus into that. I put my one foot there, I followed the instructions, and all I thought about was getting to the other side. The prize was a beer, not that I drink, but anyway, there was a prize of beer. And I don't even recall crossing. All I recall was like I crossed over and I landed on the other side, bounced in the air, flipped into the air, and then dived into the water. And it was just fantastic. Everybody was like shouting. And then suddenly I realized that it's this, how we can communicate to our internal waters, because whatever it is that we're saying to ourselves, our waters are interpreting, because water holds memory. And some of you may be familiar with a guy called Dr. Masuru Emoto, the late Dr. Masuru Emoto, who was the Messages of Water. Beautiful, beautiful crystallography. There's somebody else who, if you haven't heard of her, her name is Veda. I had the joy and pleasure to meet her in her presentation of her new book called The Living Language of Water. And I'm going to be referring to her work because one of the things of Dr. Masuru Emoto's criticism within the scientific community was that he took the most beautiful images and then he showed the images. So he would expose water to like maybe some classical music or hard rock or I love you or I hate you, and it doesn't even matter the language. It was either in Japanese because he's Japanese, or it would be in English or French, any other word, and then they'd form, if they were coherent, that there was love or appreciation, they'd have these beautiful formations. And whereas if I hate you, there would be no structures. And the problem is that they said, oh, there's no scientific rigor about that because he would just take the best images. We have to understand that he was in the days, I think it was in the 1980s or 90s, and he had a whole office that was a freezer, and with microscopes, and imagine they were gloves, and because everything was a freezer. And what Veda Austin is doing is she's taking a petri dish. She puts a little bit of water, this is her system that she's created, a little bit of water, she puts it into a freezer, and she's able to have these readings from the water, and the water she's actually created a language, so it's called crystallography, and she's already created like what she calls glyphs of water. I think she's into about 41 different ones, and so what happens is that she has to replicate this at least 50 times before she can actually say that this glyph, that little beautiful image that we can find, and I'll put some images up, these beautiful images that we can find, and it's a language, so we can do this freezing process. Now, why freezing? Because we're taught in school that water has 3 phases of water, right? There's actually a 4th phase of water. Brilliant Dr. Gerald Pollack and his team have done some discoveries, and they found out that there's another state of water, which is the state, it's basically, he calls it easy water, exclusion zone water. It's also structured water, and it is water that is between the frozen phase and the liquid phase. Anybody working in the Arctic or Antarctica knows that around the glaciers there's this gel-like substance around it, and this is the 4th phase of water. And it's believed, we don't know until now, but it's believed there's probably more phases of water, and this is what's really exciting because the science is now coming up, and all of these sort of spirituality where it was all woo-woo, it's like and what we're discovering now is that science and spirituality are coming together. And so as we move through this world that we're in, so I'm coming back to why is it that what I'm doing is because the way when we start seeing the world through our vision that we have in our vision, everybody sees the world differently. And you know how you'll see some people say, oh, they see the world through rose-colored glasses. Exactly. So because the film in our eye, this watery substance, we are seeing the world literally through the prism of water. And so when we look at this beautiful experiment that I did a video so that you can see it, when we put water, things have a way of changing direction. And so since I've been realizing this, that everything that I'm looking at, it's like I say, okay, this is the one thing that I'm seeing, but what's the flip side of it? What is the other side of it? And it's like having a reframe. So we look at it in a different way of what we have been taught, what we have been conditioned to see things, and we start re-seeing them. And what we need to start doing is, if you want, it's an invitation, is to change, first of all, our inner dialogue. How are we communicating to ourselves? Like the experiment that I did when I was walking across, it was like, I'm going to be across. It's like I've started to communicate with myself as a we. It's not like I'm going to do this because it's me and my waters, if that makes any sense. So I spent a practice during about 3 weeks of just sort of talking out aloud so that I could find out what's going on in my head, what. And most of it is pretty mundane. But if you think about it, what are those stuck records? So when we start having those shifts and we first need an awareness. Then once we have an awareness of what is this inner dialogue, can we shift it? What can we choose to do differently? Okay? And this is essential. This is really essential. And it's not something that can happen overnight. It's something that is a gradual process. But the thing is that our ascension, which means our raising our frequency and our vibration, and we are, when I had my cancer diagnosis, and it was no wonder, because there was a lot of shame, there was a lot of guilt, there was a lot of anger, there was a lot of hatred, there was a lot of very low frequency vibrations. If you want to, you can have a look at, there's a map of consciousness by David Hawkins, and he has all of the lower frequencies. I'll put the image in as I'm talking about them. They're the shame and the guilt and all of these other lower ones. And what we can aspire to is at least come into neutrality. So from this neutral point, from the center point of neutrality, then we can start going up into higher vibration, which is just even the thing of gratitude. And so I'm going to leave you this one practice, because I don't want to go on for too long, but I'm going to make a commitment to appear and to share some of this wisdom so that I can help you and share, because there's a beautiful quote that I have somewhere here. It's like, what good is love if we can't share it? And for me, the love that I feel in my heart, and knowing that this energy can have a positive influence not only on our lives, but on the world in general. And more of us who change and who learn about this and who wake up to this, we can start going on a higher frequency. We can stop watching a mainstream media. I'm going to share with you a practice that is called clear streaming, which is another whole video. But I'm going to be sharing all of these things with you, and I hope that you have enjoyed this video. I feel very passionate about what I have to share. And I will be talking a bit about astrology. Now, if you sort of say, oh, there she's lost me because of astrology, please watch my video about why astrology is important. I want you to really listen to that and have an open mind, because this is what it is that if we've been told, that astrology, just as an example, astrology is like the thing in newspapers, and it's just our sun sign, and it's very basic, limited understanding. But when we understand that we're in a planet, we're on planet Earth, and we're in the middle of this universe. And it's like, why are we not going to have more of a cosmovision? So it's an invitation to start seeing our lives in a very different way, to the way that we have been conditioned and really manipulated. There's a huge amount of manipulation, and I'm going to be telling you about also because of the fact that I lived in South Africa during the apartheid regime. I studied journalism, and it's now that it's coming out, and it's like, okay, now I'm going to start sharing this information with you from this place. So if you like this video, and if you think somebody will be able to benefit from it as well, and if you know somebody who is going through any kind of crisis, any kind of difficult situation, who you think that this information, it's very practical, it is day-to-day things that we can do, and I'm here to support you, because I cannot sit back and not share this information with you. So please share, please like, please subscribe, because it helps. And wishing you a very, very beautiful day. Take care, and blessings to you all. Thank you so much for listening until this point.